Right, so we're going to kick off then. So let me welcome everyone here this evening to what will be, I hope, and I trust, a thrilling and exciting and an intriguing evening of speeches from the wonderful people that you can see on your screen. So my name is Neil Cooper, and I'm a public speaking trainer and coach, and I work for the Speak Up Challenge, and we're happy to bring you this event where people really get the chance to share their own powerful stories to make a difference in the world. So we've got Dr. Ali Young kicking off. We've got Fungisai Motsi, all very intriguing titles, I'm sure you'll agree. We've got Dee Menges, Jacqueline Pauleon, Latoya Payne, Ninette Sandberg, and Raj Jill Harrison. So I'm going to tell you about our first speaker, who is Dr. Ali Young. So Dr. Ali Young, the title of Ali's speech is How I Saved £70,000 from Lighting a Fire in My Garden. Our first speaker is Dr. Ali Young. She was once asked on TikTok how many degrees she has, and subsequently found herself being described as an icon because she had to stop and count. The answer is actually 5 and includes philosophy, social work, family therapy, positive psychology coaching, and a doctorate in spirituality and well-being. Trained as a shamanic practitioner and a teacher of movement as a form of meditation, she has a meditation practice now dating back 30 years. She's published both poetry and academic work on spirituality in a variety of books and peer-reviewed academic journals. A dancer, an artist, a wife, and a mother, her most abiding interest is in how we can retrieve soulful living in a world riven with crisis, consumerism, and loss of meaning. So as someone who has traveled widely in landscapes of suffering, including violence, addiction, her own insanity, these are her words, remember, not mine, 2 premature children, and 3 bouts of cancer, you couldn't find a better guide for embarking on a journey of transformation. Here to talk to you about learning to listen to the signs of the soul along the way is Dr. Ali Young. Over to you then, Ali.
Thank you, Neil. I'm listening to that and I'm thinking, how am I still standing? I'm not entirely sure. Maybe we'll get some insight as the speech progresses. So what if I was to tell you that you could access all of the wisdom that you would ever need? And what's more, that all that you would have to do to gain that wisdom is to learn to listen. Learn to listen, I can hear you ask. So who is this expert, this fount of information and knowledge? Would it surprise me? Would it surprise me? It wouldn't surprise me. Would it surprise you to hear me suggest that it's actually you, and that learning to listen to yourself and to your own soul is the most important life hack that you'll ever encounter? Now, maybe you don't have much of a relationship with your own soul. Maybe you don't even know what I mean by soul. What I mean by soul is having a unique blueprint, 9 billion years of evolution, and there's only ever been one of you, a unique blueprint, a unique offering that you came to the planet to give. That's what I mean by soul. Maybe your soul is desperately doing cartwheels up and down in front of you, trying to get your attention. Maybe you're like me. Maybe you're like I was, mired in depression and anxiety, drama and addiction, haunted by the feeling that there has to be more than being told that it's a 9-to-5 job and the occasional excitement of a visit to the garden centre. So what if every feeling was a jewel and every discontent was a signpost along the road to reclaiming your own soul? I grew up with violence, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. So I know all too well the ways in which trauma can rob us of a sense of personal power. In my childhood, my escape was in music and dance. My mother put a plug, can you imagine, in these days of high tech, she put a plug on the gramophone record player that she'd been given for her 21st birthday. And whenever I felt overwhelmed by life, I would put music on and I would dissolve into the dance. Bowie or Bolan, Bach or Beethoven made no difference to me. The external response, which was to send me to ballet lessons, drove a wedge between me and my soul. The ritual humiliation in adolescence of school discos, I don't know if those of you outside of Britain have that particular form of ritual humiliation, drove another wedge between me and my soul. Conventional ideas about what I was meant to do for education, another wedge, so that by the time I was in my early 20s, I was lost. I was out in the stratosphere somewhere, dissolving myself and disappearing into drugs and alcohol instead of dance. Simultaneously, volunteering in a drug rehabilitation centre, en route to training as a social worker and seeing absolutely no contradiction whatsoever between the one behaviour and the other. Until one day, one of the group workers, a Vietnam draft dodger, I think there might be somebody who knows who that is in the audience, sat me down and said to me that if I was really serious about helping other people, that the best place to start was with myself. So on his advice, I took up co-counselling, and it was on a fateful co-counselling weekend that I heard the music that would set the trajectory of my life for the next 4 decades and beyond, because we're still going. I hunted for that music high and low, like a blue-arsed fly, as we say in Glasgow. Nothing. Trying too hard. And then one day, I caught this little whisper on the wind, and I found myself at an art gallery called, believe it or not, the Third Eye Centre. And there, inside, on a magazine called Kindred Spirit, don't tell me the universe doesn't have a sense of humour, was the originator of the music. The article, which resonated through every cell in my being, led to a workshop, which led to the absolute knowing that I wanted to train to teach this work. What came next was 15 years of clearing the obstacles to doing that training. 15 years, not a quick fix. The work was very expensive and I was very disempowered around money in my late 20s. But eventually, there I was on the jumping off point, all of my work done, ready to go and train. And by this time, I had really learned to listen to myself, body, heart, mind, spirit. And instead of a green light, what was there? And a bloody stop sign, a red light. So, in spite of the fact that this really did not fit with my plans, I mean, I'm telling you, it did not fit with my plans, I took my own counsel and I let go. A few months later, it became clear why. I discovered that I had my son on board, a pregnancy that would culminate in a birth that was 2 full months early and certainly wouldn't have survived 2 trips across the Atlantic and back. So, flash forward 5 years, and 3 bouts of cancer had meant that my ever supportive husband was about to go bankrupt. This is where the £70,000 comes in. So I went out into the garden one night, I lit a fire, I took my drum in order to petition the spirits and ask for practical help. The answer was immediate. Go and look on the internet. I had never looked for a job on the internet in my entire life. And as though my hands were guided, imagine my absolute surprise when I came across a job description that looked as though it had been written by the gods and goddesses precisely for me. When I saw it, I knew that that was my job. A 3-year doctoral position to write a doctorate on leadership, spirituality, well-being and sustainability. I ended up doing actually a 5-year anthropological study of the movement medicine community. The university very kindly kept giving me teaching work after the first 3 years, and I got my doctorate in 2015. I trained and graduated as a teacher of conscious dance practice in 2016 with the School of Movement Medicine, and I now mentor apprentices and trainee teachers. I just had my first trainee teacher graduate a couple of weeks ago, and I think another one who's about to graduate this weekend is also in the audience. I'm really touched by that support. So what's the takeaway for you? Because you might not be in the least bit interested in dance, and that's not really the point. The point is about following your own thread. So if you were to ask me, what can I do on a daily basis to begin to learn to listen? If you can find just 5 minutes, especially at the beginning of the day, to sit with yourself, put your hands on your heart and ask, what do I feel really drawn to today? What do I need? And if you can listen and you can begin to act on those things, I promise you that the world around you will begin to respond. Remember to ask for help, because help is always available. I'm Dr. Ali Young. I now offer embodied soul coaching. I work with movement medicine and a number of other healing modalities. I think Neil's going to put my slide up with my contact details after I'm finished. There's nothing that I enjoy more than helping people transform disempowerment, because that is my mission. That's been the mission that I've been given. I now understand that I was given a lot of disempowerment so that I knew all about how to transform it. But before I go, I'd just like to leave you with a fragment of one of my poems. It's called "Life is Always Listening to You. Are you listening to it?" Sometimes the moments stretch on forever, and we forget that the question was ever asked in the first place, so that the answer comes as a shock or a surprise, because the soul appears in many a guise. Remember this though, for this I know: no question ever goes unheeded, and you are not alone. Thank you so much for listening to me this evening. I look forward to hearing from anybody that would like to get in contact with me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ali. Thank you very much for that. Let me, couple of things. First of all, as you mentioned, there is a slide which you can see here, everybody, and I'll do so as well. So the question is, shamanic beliefs that date back to centuries infuse a lot of us of natural living substances, such as, I can't pronounce these things correctly, no doubt, psilocybin, and you can you? Lysergic acid, LSD. Does this assist in reaching higher heights of meditation and uncapping or unlocking locked thoughts and or paths. Yeah, how would you answer that question?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. Obviously, there are legalities to the use of some of those substances. I mean, which could lead us into a whole discussion about social oppression. I actually took LSD when I was about 19, and I knew that it would take me years to integrate what I was shown. I think we tend not to have guidance in our culture. And I think that can often lead young people into a lot of difficulty because we don't have a tradition of eldership in our culture in the way that we do in Indigenous cultures. I think that might be slowly changing. I think that's what those particularly natural substances, I think that's what they've been put on the planet for. I think they need to be used very judiciously, very carefully, with good guidance. And without doubt, they illuminate things within the psyche. They tend to, my own first experience with psilocybin, I saw that the natural world was alive in a way that I had never fully seen before. I also saw right through to the root of social conditioning. So those things they're there to fundamentally to connect us to nature. And it's also really interesting that if you spend long enough blindfold, sometimes I work night shift, sometimes on a suicide line. And I had an experience recently of my own brain starting to create DMT. I mean, it is something that the brain does naturally, actually, through fasting, through dancing. I don't do any of those things anymore. I dance for 72 hours at a time. That's how I alter my consciousness. Drumming, it's a really easy way. Dance, another way to alter consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
So,
okay, great.
To be dealt with carefully, I would say.
Okay, thank you, Ali, then. Thanks, great. Many thanks for that. And have a look in the chat. And if there are other questions and we haven't had time, we'll move on now to the next speaker. But if there are any unanswered questions, then you can go to the Q&A yourself, Ali, and you can answer live. You can type an answer in there. So that would be great.
Okay, I can see that there's a message from someone called Sabrina.
Yeah.
So I'll just I think I probably need to come off camera and let.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I'm going to introduce our next speaker now, so you can be doing that while all that's happening.
I'll retype my email address in the chat for you, Sabrina, and for anybody else that wants it. Be great to be in touch. Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, thank you, Ali. Then, thanks. And so, yeah, let me introduce our next speaker, who is Fungisai Motsi. So the title of Fungisai's speech this evening is "What Anchors Your Soul Determines Your Way Out." But let me tell you something about Fungisai before we listen to her speech. So Fungisai is an entrepreneur, a seasoned mentor, a teacher, philanthropist, and is the founder and head coach at Transcendent Being. Certified international professional coach with 17 years experience of leadership, service transformation and quality improvement, leadership development, operational management in the healthcare sector. Fungisai has specialist training in oncology, hematology, palliative care, and care of teenage and young adults, and is currently head of cancer nursing within the NHS UK. Her coaching expertise includes transformation, strategic life, business, executive, holistic, health expert, and well-being coach. Her passions include providing health well-being coaching for cancer and long-term condition patients, an area where she has trained extensively. She also works with young adults in the Black and minority ethnic groups, providing mentorship, career guidance, and life coaching. In addition to the above, works with women in business to equip, activate, empower for purpose-filled living. Fungisai is trained and a certified and accredited professional master NLP practitioner, master emotional field therapy, thought field therapy practitioner, coach practitioner, group strategic life coach, emotional intelligence practitioner, timeline therapy practitioner, hypnotherapy practitioner, accredited complementary therapist in mindfulness, meditation, and energy healing teacher practitioner. Fungusai is a member of the Association for Coaching, the Association for Professional Coaching, and Complementary Therapist Accredited Association. So, wow, she's got some credentials there. Okay, great. Well, that's who we're going to be hearing from. So, Fungusai, it's over to you.
Thank you, Neil. What anchors your soul determines your way out. As they say, our life's biggest storms are proven by the strength of our anchor. I don't know what it is for you. What keeps you grounded, safe, stable, and stops you from drifting? For me, it was a story of bringing my chaos into alignment. I recall clearly in June 2011 was my life's biggest storm. I found myself having an acute asthma attack. I was not able to speak by the time I got to the hospital, using only my ID as a way of identifying who I was. Within minutes, a decision had been made to put me in a medically induced coma. That was me for the next week. The biggest storm of my life, the biggest storm that I would face, a storm that was challenging to the very core of who I am, spiritually, psychologically, emotionally, and physically. As it were, I had to relearn everything afresh, everything anew as I was coming out. But that was the biggest and best thing that could have happened, because what it did, it gave me a new opportunity to become, a new opportunity to experience a world of possibilities, a world I never lived before, a world where I was going to face everything to rising up to my challenges. Also a moment of great awakening, realization, refocusing, and reconnection to my being, a moment of conscious awakening, spiritual awakening. In my quest to realign, the strategy I began to use is become our hallmark at Transcendent Being. It's what we call RUST, to rise, ascend, soar, and to transcend. A world where you begin to look at all that you are, becoming aware as you rise up, what anchors you've got in every aspect of your life, what purpose and how well they serve you. I don't know if we can take a moment to reflect. If not, maybe just noting it down. What anchors you have in every aspect of your life. What purpose and how well are they serving you? For me, gratitude became a lifestyle, maintaining a state of grace, positivity in my thinking, mastering my emotions were key to my journey. Joy and bliss became my compass. Love and kindness were important to me, connecting back to self and also how I connect with others. Faith, hope, belief were important and gave me confidence in how I saw my bloom, my future, how it would fully become, elevating me to a position where I could receive it wholly. My purpose, my passions, priorities to be realized. And this became the bedrock of my holistic development, the holistic balancing of my heart, my soul, my mind, and my strength. As you begin to ascend, you're beginning to use your life's thermals of challenges that we face, rising up with that and using that to thrust and propel you forward to become the person that you're meant to be, to become the powerful, instrument and tool that you want to be. And that was my journey of soaring into alignment of who I really am, with courage, commitment, and determination to build capacity, a whole systems engagement of my spirit, soul, mind, and my body, with clarity of vision, a worldview and a vantage point now much broader, much more inclusive than ever before, understanding who I really am, what my purpose is, what my motivations are, and how I could serve the world around me, to own and to occupy my ordained space. And that's how I started Transcended Being, a world where we can transcend to go beyond all human limitations, a world of possibilities, a world where anything where we set our hearts and our minds to become, where we can flourish, where we can thrive. And that is my passion, and that is my mission, to serve people with long-term conditions who are facing similar life storms, to work with women who've been through domestic violence, who face a storm that they never imagined that they could find themselves in, to work with teenage and young adults in the Black and ethnic minorities who are facing so many life struggles, whatever limitations, that we can go beyond those human limitations, a world where we can fully thrive, where we can flourish. We can transcend it all by truly and authentically becoming who we are, connecting to fully our being, so we can connect to the world around us. In conclusion, I'd like to share a story about a Cherokee legend. And he's talking to his grandson, and he's talking about a battle that goes inside. And he said, "Son, the battle is between two wolves inside of us. One is negativity, darkness, and despair. The other is positivity, light, and hope." The grandson thought about this a minute and asked, "Which wolf wins?" And the grandfather replied, "The one that you feed." And my call to action is, what wolf will you feed? The wolf that you feed becomes your anchor. And it takes us to our opening statement. What anchors your soul determines your way out. We can take a moment to reflect, a moment to think what we can apply, what we can change, what we can teach ourselves, that we are anchored with things that will help us grow, flourish, and to thrive, to fully become who we are meant to be. And I'll leave you with rust, rise, ascend, soar, and transcend. Thank you.
Thank you, Fungisai. Thank you. Very, very eloquent and powerful. Thank you very much. I love the story about the wolves. Which one will you feed? Yeah, that is such a great question. And I also really love the anchor analogy. I think that really got me thinking. So, people, all our attendees here this evening, if you've joined us and you're listening to these speeches, I'd like you to be thinking about, public speaking as well. It's like, it's often said to be an art, the art of public speaking. So why is that, do you think? Why is it referred to as an art? Any thoughts that you've got on this subject, please do share them in the chat. And another key question for me is, how do we engage over a platform such as Zoom as a public speaker, which is what all of our speakers are doing this evening? And I'm sure you will agree with me, doing it very, very powerfully. So are there any particular skills, do you think, for public speaking via a platform like this? Is it different in some way to speaking in front of an audience in a room, in a large auditorium? So yeah, please do share your thoughts. And I noticed a question came through in the chat about, well, how do I these speakers? What's the process? How do we come together? So remember I said at the beginning that I'm a trainer and a coach, and I'm working with a project, if you like, called the Speak Up Challenge, which is all about empowering people to share their stories. People have got most extraordinary stories who come to the Speak Up Challenge, and it's a great privilege for me to spend time with them and hear their stories as they unfold. So you can find out more about this, and after this event this evening, you'll receive an email giving you the details of the speakers, but you'll also have the opportunity, if you would like to attend a free event, for example, to discover more about what it is that we do at the Speak Up Challenge. Then you can do that. You can do that. The great opportunity of the Speak Up Challenge is that we have speakers from all over and from such diverse backgrounds. And for me, that is the thing which I relish the most about it. So in the past, I trained a lot of people in public speaking. I did that in companies, in businesses, and so on for many years. I would get to see people, once and then never see them again. But the amazing thing about the Speak Up Challenge is the journey that we go on together to help these stories really flower, really flourish, really blossom. So yeah, that is the answer to that particular question. So let us move on. Okay, just one answer here. Storytelling is an art of getting the audience into a trance. Yes, that's very true. So storytelling is absolutely crucial, isn't it, to public speaking, and there's an art to being a great storyteller and using that in public speaking or in a speech. So I think storytelling is so powerful because it engages us on an emotional level, not just on an analytical level. So let's introduce our next speaker then, if I may. Our next speaker is Dee Menges. And the title of Dee's speech, my video is off. Bring my video on. Hello, sorry, my video was off. The title is really fun. It's really intriguing. It's Confessions of a Convict. Okay, so let me tell you a bit about Dee. Dee has lived a very dichotomous life. What seemed like a perfect life to those on the outside was actually a perfect mess for Dee on the inside. She's lived in 4 countries, speaks 3 languages, and has 2 Lifetime Achievement Awards. It took her almost half her life to see through the smoke and mirrors of the system. And this has inspired Dee to remove the mask and to turn her mess into a message for you. So please welcome Dee to the stage. Over to you, Dee.
Thank you, Neil. Good evening, everyone. I have a question for you. What do suits, slaves, serial killers, and stewardesses have in common? Well, they all form part of my story, Confessions of a Convict. Now, you wouldn't know this just by looking at me, but I was a convict. My crime was my duty to beauty, and for that, I served an 18-year sentence. I was imprisoned in a maximum security facility. Thick, gray, cold concrete confined me, along with 3 other inmates. Now, the 4 of us had a special language to deal with our ordeal. We didn't call each other inmates. We called each other colleagues. We called our prison cell an office. We called our prison sentence a career. We called time off for good behavior retirement. And we called the prison warden our boss. Now, the prison warden, she was something else. She was a serial killer, the killer of passion and the killer of dreams, always telling us that what we did was never enough, what we did was never good enough, and that we were not worthy of what we were paid. The future seemed as gray and as cold as those concrete confines that I called my workspace, where I worked in marketing in the beauty industry, dreaming of bringing beauty and confidence and inspiration and empowerment to the lives of the women I served. I called that my duty to beauty. Now, in spite of the circumstances, I really loved my work though. And so I showed up. I suited up, dressed to the nines while working in a 6x9, working a 9 to 5, which was actually more realistically a 7 to 11, all whilst living on a dime. I felt like a slave to the system of eat, work, sleep, repeat, a slave to my salary where I had more month than I had money, a slave to the stories I told myself. I'm stuck. I want to leave, but I can't leave. I don't have money. I can't leave. I don't have a backup plan. I can't leave. What if I fail? What will people say? I couldn't leave, but I couldn't be fired either. Because here is the truth about slaves. You can't fire slaves. Slaves have to be sold. So there I remained, cuffed and convicted by the stories, the circumstances, and the conditions. I felt chained down. Now, Rihanna, she might be excited by whips and chains, but they don't excite me. I wish that they had, though, because maybe it would have excited me and whipped me into action. Because here's another thing that I was a slave to. I was a slave to procrastination. In fact, when procrastination called, I was the first one to answer. Yes, I know. The irony of that is not lost on me. I remember sitting at my desk one day, feeling absolutely stuck, wishing that I was a stewardess instead. I mean, they seem free, right? They get to take to the skies in their job. They get to see the world. And most importantly, they know where all of the emergency exits are. And that was what I needed. I needed an emergency exit. I needed an escape. I needed a plan. I needed to be smart. But wait a minute, I had been smart all my life, diligently following the rules of the system. I studied hard, graduating, top of my class with 2 majors. I worked hard, receiving the Yellowwood Award for brand management. But alas, it is I who was branded corporate clown for playing along in the circus of eat, work, sleep, repeat. I was branded puppet, dancing along to the tunes of the puppet master, the big boss, the man who held all of the strings, including the purse strings, and with that, my future and my fate. No, look where smart had gotten me. And everybody told me to be smart. Be smart, D. Have smart goals, D. But look where smart had gotten me. And so I decided to turn that around. I wasn't going to have smart goals anymore. I was going to have dumb goals. That's right. D-U-M-B. Let me break it down for you. D, dare to dream. In order to live the life I wanted, I had to dare to dream. I had to be defiant of all of those people who told me that I couldn't do it. Defiant of all of the fears and the doubts and the procrastination. Defiant of the what ifs. What if I failed? Because what if I didn't? And so I decided to move in the direction of my dreams and let that break me free of the chains that confined me. And to let it lead me into the life that I always wanted for myself. I understood that in order to reach my dreams, I had to be unrelenting in pursuit of them, to be able to get up more times than I had fallen, to know that I was unlimited in all of the things that I could be and in all of the things that I could do. And to act as if I was unafraid, even if I was shaking in my shoes. M, magic. As a child, I loved magic and magic shows, and I marveled at the ability of magicians to pull things out of a hat, to take the unseen and suddenly make it seen. But I didn't know any magicians, and so I had to become my own magician and create my own magic. Which brings me to B, and that is exactly it, B. See, all along, I had been waiting for life to get better, waiting for my dreams to come to me. I had allowed life to be the boss of me, when in fact, I needed to step up, claim my birthright to brilliance, and to be the boss of my own life. So to you, and to all of you, if you feel stuck serving out a similar sentence, I'm here to tell you that you too can break free. I've received 2 Lifetime Achievement Awards, one for success and one for failure. Now, I know that you might think that failure is a bad thing, but I'm here to tell you that it's not. Like my mom always used to tell me, D, failure is success just turned inside out. I've learned that you learn more from your failures than you do from your successes. And so failure is but a mere stepping stone on your path to success. I leave you with the wise words of Napoleon Hill, who said, whatever the human mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. So I ask you, move in the direction of your dreams, starve your fears, and feed your faith. Today, I live into my dreams. I now coach women to live inspired lives with empowerment and confidence. And in that, I answer my calling, my true duty to beauty. And when I light up somebody else's life, that makes my heart soar. I am now a serial killer of doubt and fear and procrastination. And I still suit up. I am no longer a convict, but I do have a conviction. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Dee. Wow. I think I saw comments in the chat that were going, wow. And I think that's all I can say is wow. And for me, there was a real laugh out loud moment. I love that bit in your speech, Dee, when you talk about they knew where the emergency exits were. So I think we're all kind of, yeah, sometimes, well, there are times in life when we wish we knew where they were. Anyway, that was brilliant, just absolutely brilliant. And I think, you know, in some ways you've answered the question that I discovered in the Q&A, which had come in earlier. If you take a look in the Q&A, everyone, you'll see a question about, well, how do we stay positive, you know, in these very confronting, very challenging, very difficult times that we've all been experiencing, and me included, you know, me included. So I think, well, all of the speakers, in fact, are providing their own unique answers to that particular question. So, you know, that's what I can see. That's what I can see, you know. So yeah, listen to these speakers and check them out.
I might answer with 3 little tips as to how you can stay positive.
Okay, go for it.
How to stay positive, even when it feels like the world is falling around you. Positivity is an inner game. It is a mindset thing. And so we learn to train ourselves to be positive. We train ourselves to see the beauty even in challenging times. It's finding positive in negative spaces. It's finding beauty in ugly places. You have to be able to look for them. Number 2, is to get yourself an accountability partner, to get yourself a partner in believing. When you find somebody who has a similar mindset, seeking positivity, you can challenge each other and hold each other's feet to the fire, and you can inspire each other. I have 3 partners in believing, and I cannot tell you how much they've helped me, and I do the same for them, to move the needle marks towards your growth. And as you start taking step by step, you're going to see how magic starts to happen in your life. So I encourage you to do so. The third is to get yourself a coach. A coach is not impressed by circumstances and conditions, and they know how to help you and assist you with that mindset shift. And a coach it's a safe space where you have confidentiality, so you can come to them removing all of your masks and you can just bare your soul. A coach is not going to judge you. They are there to assist you, to walk with you in the journey. They don't have any judgments. They just want the best for you. And so always work on it. It's not something that you do just once. Positivity is something that you work towards on a daily basis. And as you start to practice that, of positivity, you will find yourself gaining your confidence and gaining momentum in that positivity.
Great, thank you very much, Dee. Thank you. I am with you there. I'm with you. People who hold us to account, that is really useful. You declare your goals. I like the idea of the dumb goals. I'm hearing a lot about this at the moment. We've heard a lot about SMART goals. Smart, smart, smart. We've heard nothing but that for like 20 years or maybe more. But now I'm hearing increasingly people talking about dumb goals, and it was brilliant the way you outlined that for us. But dream-driven goals are tremendous if you then take action and you have someone who's holding you to account to achieve that dream. And this is what I did. If I may share briefly, but I declare I'm in my spare time, I'm an opera singer. Sometimes I'm an opera singer in my full time, and I'm a trainer or a teacher in my spare time. But at the moment, I'm an opera singer in my spare time. And a few years ago, I declared a ridiculous goal, which is that I was going to sing Othello at the Royal Opera House, Covent Garden. So that was that was dream driven. That was like, I am going to do that. I threw my hat over the wall. It's like, okay, I just declared it, and I had all kinds of, people in my life holding me to account, supporting me, great teachers, great coaches, partner, other people, professional coaches and so on. I just took massive action, got myself out of the way all the time, even when there was no hope. I just kept taking the action, kept believing, doing it with integrity, you know what I mean? And okay, I didn't actually achieve that goal, but along the way, a lot of really fun things happened as I played that game to win it, because you play the game to win it. I wasn't play acting, I was playing it to win it. And I ended up, singing at the Metropolitan Opera in New York, the Paris Opera, the Berlin Philharmonic, La Scala in Milan. That's what happened because I had a dream-driven, dumb goal. And I had people in my life who held me to account, and I got myself out of the way. So yeah, I think your story brings that home to me. So okay, let's move on now, if we can, to our next speaker. So thank you, Dee. And our next speaker is Jacqueline Pauleon. Now, Jacqueline is actually a speaker who is based in Martinique. So, she has traveled a long way to be here. Let me tell you a little bit about Jacqueline. So the title of Jacqueline's speech is The Outsiders of Sexual Victimization. Jacqueline Pauleon is a former victim of sexual abuse who has now become a professional personal development specialist and therapist. Today, she's found not only her healing, but also her purpose. Tonight, she wants to share with you on the topic, the outsiders of sexual victimization. So I'd like to give the floor now to Jacqueline. It's over to you, Jacqueline.
Thank you, Neil. So here, the outsiders of sexual victimization. My childhood experiences of sexual molestation taught me something amazing. I can still picture her, a little girl dressed up in a pink short and a red blouse, running across the bushes, trying her best not to get lost. She has been left behind by her perpetrator. She has just been raped. Another scene is one of a young lady sitting, lying down on a stretcher, bleeding her life out, tears rolling down her eye, and she's wondering, why is this happening to me again? Am I cursed? You see, I grew up in an environment where rape and molestation was so present, and it taught me how to hate myself. Shame and guilt I face every day, problems to sleep, anxiety. I had memory loss many times. What it would take someone to learn in one day would take me maybe a week. Anyway, I grew up, and a few years later, a few years ago, I decided to create a new life for me, to get out of this black, dark hole of suffering which I lived in. And so I sorted out help, and I found help. I found it through the listening ears of counselors, of therapists, and of friends. Thanks to them. There was a question, though, which kept trotting in my mind. I see just a few men coming out to say it happened to me, and much more women. So I was wondering, are there not more men getting abused? So I started out to make my research, and I found out that 27% of men has encountered sexual victimization. That's 1 out of 6 men. Okay, so why ain't they coming out and talk about it? What's wrong? So I decided to speak to them about vulnerability, speak to males about vulnerability. And they told me, we can't come out like this and show our emotions. The society will think that we are weak. We are expected to be strong. It doesn't mean that we don't feel hurt or we don't get hurt, but it's not easy to show it, so we prefer to keep it. So I said to myself then, Jacqueline, you have a work to do. It's part of your mission. So I went out and I had my NLP practitioner diploma. I got myself a life coach diploma, professional, of course, a relationship facilitator diploma. And I wrote a book which is called Break the Chains of Your Past, because I wanted to create space for men, not only for females, but for males also. There's one story of a guy which really held my attention. We were talking, I created this space and we were speaking about vulnerability in men. And I told him my story. And he said to me, you know what? I have so many diplomas. I've met many great men. I know so many people. But still, when I wake up, I feel so filthy. I'm so ashamed of myself. I have all these bad feelings, all these bad thoughts about myself. And he was just pouring out his heart and telling me how hurt he was. Today, I'm happy to say that he's starting to get there. And that's beautiful. That is why I'm here today to ask of you, when you are around men, create a space of confidence, like knock on the door and create the space where they can come and where they can open the door and be vulnerable. Let them know that just because they're a male, it doesn't mean that they have to keep the pain. It's okay to share your pain if you're a male. Let them know that. Ask them the question, have you ever been through something which was uncomfortable to you? And let them know that you're not suggesting that it has happened. But if it has happened, it's okay. Your son, a father, an uncle, maybe today is a victim. And victims can also become perpetrators. So this is why I'm saying, let's create that space and let men know that vulnerability is not a weakness, it's a strength. Come out and say what is wrong. Let them know that out there is help. There are counselors, therapists. And the more people who will knock on the door and allow them to open this door, and the more the society will be healed. Let us create that space, that new culture, where there are no more outsiders of sexual victimization. That both women and men alike can find more places among their families, among their friends, and among the professionals, where they can be listened to, where they feel heard, and where they feel that they have the right to be vulnerable. My name is Jacqueline Pauleon, and I'm a coach, I'm a PNL practitioner, and I wrote this book about breaking those chains. Let us break chains. I do accompany young people, women, and men. But what is more rewarding is to see these people, each person, come out and say, wow, there's so much to life. And we don't have to remain in the victimization zone. My friends call me Jackie. So I'm asking of you today to be a Jackie to your son, maybe to a father, maybe to a male friend, not only to women, but also to males. Be a Jackie for someone. And if you are a male or a female who needs to be listened to, who wants to come out of this dark zone, you can always reach out to me. I'll be honored to help you. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Jacqueline. Amazing. I really admire your courage in sharing that story. It's just really so powerful. Vulnerability is not a weakness. That's a very powerful message, I think. And so, also breaking the chains of the past. The title of your book. That's also really inspiring. And just to clarify, because I noticed in the chat there are a couple of questions around this. So my understanding is that you're actually joining us from Martinique, right? But you
Yes.
come originally from Saint Lucia?
Yes, I'm originally from Saint Lucia.
Yeah, Saint Lucia, yeah. Okay,
and
great.
I'm joining us from Martinique.
Yeah.
French.
Okay, great. Yeah,
Yeah.
brilliant. Okay, well, thanks so much, Jacqueline. That was amazing. I'm going to bring up your image here.
Okay.
That's this is Jacqueline here, and so we'll leave that on the screen for a while. You can take a look at that if you'd like to. You will receive at the end, after this event, you'll receive an email with contact details of different speakers that you've heard this evening, and yeah, I'm sure they'd love to hear from you. You know, if you've got questions or any interest in what they do, in the very particular different areas in which they all make a difference. So, okay, now just curious that if you're listening to this as an attendee, fear of public speaking is a massive thing for many people, isn't it? As we're well aware, it's a common form of anxiety, really. And so sometimes it's relatively mild, it's mild nervousness, but for some people it can be, paralyzing fear and panic. It's also really quite interesting to note there was an AT&T Stanford University research project that was conducted over a period of 20 years that found that one of the top predictors of professional success and so-called upward mobility is how much you enjoy and how good you are at public speaking. So it's kind of interesting on one hand that public speaking is something that terrifies us so much, or many of us, and then on the other hand, if we can get good at it, it would appear to be a bit of a superpower. So one of the key things for me is, well, how do we transform and overcome nerves and fear of public speaking? So maybe you have a thought on this as you're listening to me. So how about sharing that in the chat? What's your top tip for overcoming the fear of public speaking? And we'll keep an eye on that as we go on. But next up, I would like to introduce Latoya Payne. So Latoya, let's introduce Latoya. So Latoya, why you need to be selfish to build resilience. That's the title of Latoya's speech. And Latoya is the living embodiment of resilience this evening. And I won't say more about that, but so resilience is a word, and it's a topic that is very, very much on people's minds at the moment, especially given the challenging times that we've been exposed to. So who is Latoya? Latoya Payne is an advanced social worker, a qualified life coach, and youth mentor who specializes in working with girls and women to empower them to develop the life skills and emotional intelligence they need to achieve better life outcomes. So it's my pleasure to welcome Latoya to come and speak to you. So it's over to you, Latoya.
They say you're stubborn. I say you're determined. They say you're obsessive. I say you're focused. They say you're a victim. I say you're a survivor. They say you don't know when to quit. I say you're resilient. Well, what is resilience and how do you build it? For me, a perfect example of resilience would be Derek Redmond, the athlete at the 1992 Barcelona Olympics, who started his race so well and was winning and he was in the lead. And then suddenly he had an injury and his race was over. In front of the world, in front of his family, a lifetime of preparation, and all his hopes and dreams had been dashed in an instant. But there was what that happened next that demonstrated for me what resilience really is. Rather than go to the sideline and quit the race, Derek decided to limp towards that finish line. He cried bitter tears knowing that his dreams had been dashed. With the cameraman in his face, he still kept his eyes on that finish line and determined that he was going to make it to the end, that he had started, so he would finish. And as he sobbed those sorrowful tears, his father came alongside him and carried him and helped him until minutes later, minutes after the race had been won and finished, he eventually crossed that finish line. Now, the definition of resilience, according to the dictionary, is your ability to bounce back from negative experiences quickly. But I personally feel that that definition doesn't do resilience any justice whatsoever. Because in life, you're going to have negative experiences. We all have negative experiences. The rain falls on the just and on the unjust, and we can't predict what will happen to us, but we have control of how we respond. Like Derek, I believe that we have to allow ourselves to be human and to cry and to acknowledge when things have gone wrong. And even if the world is watching, keep our focus on our own personal finish line. So how do you build it? How do you develop resilience? Resilience is like a muscle. A bodybuilder doesn't become able to lift severely heavy weights in a day. He goes to the gym daily and builds up his resilience, his ability to lift heavier weights daily, from daily routine. And just like that, resilience is built in your daily routine. It's the things we do every day while coping with things like cancer, being a victim of sexual abuse, having things that are negative happen, but still keeping our eyes on our finish line. That is what builds resilience. But to do that, to be successful at that, to be building resilience daily, you've got to be selfish. Why do I say you have to be selfish? First of all, you have to know what it is you want and make yourself a priority. You have to make your visions, your dreams a priority. And that means learning to say no. Oftentimes as people, we're taught that saying no is wrong. But we have to learn to say no to negativity, no to distraction, and no to the things in our lives that we know do not lead us towards our greater purpose, our ultimate goals, our personal finish line. So today, I want us to explore what selfishness really is and what it looks like. It means putting yourself first. It means acknowledging that others around me may be in a ship sinking, but if I don't put on my life jacket first, I can't save anybody else. I will go down with the sinking ship. Being resilient and being selfish means I acknowledge that negative things have happened and give myself permission, like Derek did, to let someone come alongside me, to carry me when I cannot carry myself, to be vulnerable, to be open, to be honest. But also being selfish means owning your story. My story is that I was born in Jamaica to parents who had separated before I was born. My story is that at 2, my mother abandoned me and left me with grandparents. My story is that at 5, I came to this country and I had a lisp and a stammer and didn't speak very good English. My story is that by the age of 22, I was a single mother with 2 children, no education, and a job that was not going to pay my bills. I was a statistic. I had been abused by parents. I had been abused in relationships. I had a lot of things in my life that were not desirable. But I knew my life had purpose. And I knew that if I could create and envision a finishing line for myself, then I could create the life I wanted to achieve. So I had to be selfish. I had to say no to negative relationships. I had to say no to negativity. I had to say no to distraction. I had to say no to everything that rose up that was contrary to the desires I wanted and the things I wanted to manifest in my life and in my children's life. But as I got older and I became a social worker, what I found was there's a danger to get burnt out trying to do everything for everyone and being all things to all people. And again, I had to reassess and reflect on my life. And then the revelation did hit me that indeed, if I am to be really resilient, I need to put myself first to avoid burnout, to avoid ill health, to avoid mental health problems, to self-care, and not just do it someday, but to make it my practice every day. And through doing that daily, through prayer, meditation, reading, relaxing, saying no and shutting doors to things that were not going to lead me to my personal purpose and goal, then I was able to further develop my resilience. So, as I say to you today, and as the title of my speech goes, to be truly resilient, you must be selfish. This is my story. This is my song. I've been Latoya Payne. Thank you.
Thank you, Latoya. Wow. Wow, really inspirational. Thanks, Latoya. That was so great. Yeah, I loved, wow, you know, some of the things you said. One thing I really love is when you said, keep our focus on our own personal finish line. That's really inspirational, I think. Yeah, so I get what you're saying. Now you may have a question. If you have a question for Latoya, please pose that in the chat, in the Q&A rather, and I'm sure she'd be delighted to answer. Yeah, absolutely brilliant, Latoya. It made me think, you know, when I was listening to you, I used to have a singing teacher in Paris, and one of the things that she used to say was, if you don't put yourself on a pedestal, nobody else will. And now from listening to your speech, it came back to mind. Yeah, that is what's amazing about storytelling, everyone, isn't it? Because when someone shares their story with that passion, that vulnerability, that courage, that power that we just saw with Latoya, and from all our speakers this evening, you know, it brings us back to our own memories. It conjures things up in our own mind, and that's really what this is about, I think. That's the power of storytelling. We just saw it right there. Yeah, so that's what came to my mind, and I understand what my old singing teacher was saying now. She was saying, you know, you have to. It's not about being selfish and being horrible and being a nasty person, but about, yeah, you take your own finish line seriously. And I never used to do that when I was younger, you know. I never used to do that. My teacher always used to say to me something which really used to annoy me. She would say, Neil, I don't know what it is about you, but you hide your light under a bushel. And this sentence used to really annoy me because I didn't know what she meant by my light. I didn't know what she meant by the bushel. As far as I was aware, you know, my light was on. I didn't know what she was talking about. But anyway, she was right. And many years later, I discovered what she meant by my light, what is it exactly? And I discovered what she meant by the bushel. And I got to see that she was right all along. It just took me 20 years or 15 years or whatever to work it out. But when I found the light and I found the bushel, I was able to, you know, resolve the equation and stop hiding the one under the other. And so, you know, I really get that from your story. Okay, now I'd like to introduce our next speaker. So we've also had some interesting comments in the chat about, you know, dealing with nerves. I think you're spot on when you say what you say here. So, for example, one of our attendees has shared their view on this. speaking about a subject that you are passionate about is important, I believe, as it allows you to forget about your anxieties. Well, I totally get that. I absolutely think that's key. That is really crucial. So thank you for that. Now, I'd like to introduce our next speaker, who is Ninette Sandberg. So the title of Ninette's speech is The Importance of Mental Health and Learning to Change Your Mindset. So let me tell you a little bit about Ninette, if I may. Ninette Sandberg is a former public school teacher who has spent more than a decade suffering from depression. Now she advocates for a revolution in the way we educate our children. So Ninette, it's over to you now. So I'm going to give you the floor.
Thank you so much, Neil. Man up, will you stupid big fat cow. Little mouse, come out and play. This is a safe place for you to be. You know, I often wonder how I could ever feel so small in this enormous body. But I did. I'm here to talk to you today about the importance of mental health and learning how to change your mindset. And I will do that by sharing a bit of my story, the journey that I have taken, and a tiny bit of research. But most importantly, what I want you to leave with today is something to think about. You see, I used to be a school teacher, and I really loved my job. I really did. What I didn't love was the assumption that I met ever so often that, oh, he's such a stupid kid, he'll never learn anything. Just take a look at his parents. But who are you to judge a child like that? I went down with burnout, depression, anxiety, panic attacks, and stress, to the extent that I had to have my 11-year-old son do the shopping, taking out the garbage, answering my phone because I couldn't even talk to my own family. Then one day at my therapist's office, my therapist asked him, but how does it make you feel seeing your mom like this? And the answer he gave me that day was a real eye-opener. Because he said, it makes me feel so scared. Because if my mom can't take care of herself, then who's going to take care of me? I made a promise that day that I would do whatever it would take to climb out of that hellhole that I had put myself in. Little did I know, though, that it would take me almost 15 years. In the meantime, little by little, my mindset became his mindset. He went down with depression and anxiety and even suicide attempts. And I had to send him away for him to get the help that I thought that he needed the most. I wonder if any of you listening today have ever had to make a decision that hard because you knew that it was the only way out. Dr. Osman Shabir states that no one psychiatric or mental disorder has a 100% genetic basis or heritability, and therefore many environmental factors may strongly influence the likelihood of developing a particular disorder or not, despite the presence or the absence of genetic elements. And Albert Einstein, he stated that the true sign of intelligence is not knowledge, it's imagination. And that everybody is a genius. But if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it's stupid. Now, what do I want to say with all this? I want to emphasize the importance of bringing mental health and teaching the ability to change your mindset into our school system. My mission is to change the education system and to bring mental health a top priority, because our mental health controls everything in our lives. It controls what we think, what we feel, what we eat, the actions we take, the decisions we make, how we sleep. It affects all of our life. We were all born creative, courageous, and curious beings. And the least we can do is teach our children to stay that way and to be bold and brave. And it all starts with you. Thoughts you bring to the table and your actions. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Ninette. Well, thank you so much, Ninette. I really admire what you did there. You know, I could hear a pin drop.
Yeah.
So I don't think any of us should think for a second that you can't make an impact by public speaking over a platform such as Zoom, because you created that pin drop experience for us as an audience. And so, you know, I really take my hat off to Ninette for the vulnerability and the courage that you showed in sharing that really such a vital message really for us all. Because as you say, and I wrote down this, mental health affects all of our life, the whole of our life. Yeah, so that was really powerful. So thank you, Ninette.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, so we are going to invite our next and our final speaker, in fact, of the evening to get ready. So let me introduce our next speaker, who is Raj Jill Harrison. Now, the title of Raj's speech is "To Me or Not to Me." That is our challenge. Okay, so let me tell you a bit about Raj. Raj is a coach, consultant, and mentor, specializing in working with people from vulnerable groups or hard to reach and isolated communities. She has successfully created and promoted strengthened as well inclusive practices at grassroots and strategic leadership levels in the health, social care, education, and charity sectors for over 30 years. So that's some of her professional background. Through an effective combination and application of her professional skills and qualities from her psychologist roots and background in counselling and training to management and leadership, awareness raising, community engagement, and community cohesion skills. Alongside this work, she's also lived as an informal, unpaid carer. So something which I know a lot about, I have to say. Caregiver for 40 plus years, the impact of which has shaped and driven her passion and purpose to empower and effect quality and impactful solution-focused options for the carer challenge faced by individuals, communities, and organizations and beyond. There is a silent pandemic of carer crisis already, which was with us pre-COVID-19 times, and which has only further magnified in the last year or so around the world, every single minute of every single day in every single community. Becoming a carer can and does happen to anyone at any time, and needing a caregiver will almost certainly happen to all of us at some stage in our lives. It does not discriminate on whom and when it calls. Through her Carers Health and Wellbeing Forum and Carers Count 2, Raj is becoming a key voice, change maker and driver for the acknowledgement, support and equality of this vulnerable and increasing workforce of selfless, caring, exhausted and unpaid key workers and individuals. Raj is actively helping effect real change, raising awareness, helping prevent burnout, and encouraging and enabling self-care, resilience, recovery, and self-growth through her work as the carer's coach. In her talk, Plan C, Who Cares? Raj will explore the impacts this responsibility of caring for someone other than yourself can have on carers as individuals. So she also looks at how we as a society can and should do better at both anticipating and preparing for the carer challenge. Raj welcomes connection from anyone who might want to reach out to her if you want to know more, or if you would like to discuss things in further detail, both personally or professionally. Okay, so that is that's who is speaking to us next, and that tells us a bit about this very important topic of being a carer and what that can mean in an individual's life. So it's over to you now, Raj.
Thank you, Neil. I had a dream, as Martin Luther King said. I always knew I wanted to work with people and help people. And I was on the road to achieving my dream of becoming a specialist clinical child psychologist many, many years ago. But little did I know that my life would take me on a totally different journey that I hadn't planned. Hello, my name is Raj. I'm an unpaid carer and a coach. Over the years, I graduated, went to university, and it got accepted on my dream PhD. But 30 years ago, my plans and dreams fell by the wayside. I came from a single parent home, and my mother had a variety of progressive health conditions, and I had been her carer since childhood. As she deteriorated, I ended up back in my hometown. So I took local jobs and lived life as a carer on standby. And then I went from part-time to full-time intensive over the next 30 years. Excuse me. Over those years, I had a family of my own, raised my lovely 2 children as a single parent, and continued to care for my mum's deteriorating health, as well as then also in the last decade for my mentally and physically ill partner and my 2 stepchildren. So I'd moved from full-time work into part-time work, and then gradually I moved into full-time unpaid work and no paid work, juggling mundane routines, acute crises, and providing aftercare alongside all the regular family and home commitments that we all wear with all our different hats. I provided increasing and then constant 24/7, 365-day care and support that ranged from personal care to financial and administrative management, advocacy support on hospital appointments and consultations. I was a cook, the cleaner, the nurse, the counsellor, the family crisis manager, housekeeper, chauffeur, childminder, and a zillion things in between. And primarily, I was also like an in-house risk prevention officer, constantly trying to minimise risks to mental and physical well-being and health for my mum and my partner and my children and myself, before, during and after hospitalisations, which were too countless to mention. I ended up burned out and exhausted. I developed chronic progressive health conditions myself and found myself living in dire poverty, having had to give up paid work for so long. My savings were all gone. My self-nurturing, my self-caring, just non-existent. And my own needs, my admin needs, my respite needs, my physical, social, practical, emotional needs, they just weren't a priority. I couldn't prioritise them with the lack of time that I had and the energy. I lost quality time with my young family, which I never dreamed would happen. And I couldn't afford to give them special treats and trips as I'd always dreamed of for my family. We spent many, many birthdays visiting family, nanny, and our partner in the hospital. And it was only when my full-time, intense journey came to an end and became part-time that I truly, truly realised the impacts and consequences, and they hit me hard. I suddenly realised that just how socially and emotionally isolated I had become. My friends, my peers, my colleagues, they'd all moved on with their own life plans, and I had become excluded because I was always either dealing with an emergency or a crisis, or couldn't get someone to give me respite so I could join them and have a break. I just couldn't afford it either in time or with energy or financially. One of my most sad times that I had to miss and was devastated about was one of my best friends from school celebrated her 40th birthday. It was a lavish event and I unfortunately couldn't go. But she's a great friend, so that didn't put her off, and we're still in touch now, which is great. I was always on hyper alert, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. As you know, I've already said it, and that's how it felt, a drudge. It kept being a repetition. It was like Groundhog Day. Sadly, I am not alone or unusual in this state of being. And that's why I'm quite excited about my new journey with you and with others. My dream now and my mission is to empower you and others to find solution-focused strategies to prepare you and your loved ones on your journey of the care challenge. We'll all go on it, and I can help with my experiences, my learnings, my skills. And that's my story so far. It could be anyone's. And our studies around the world show I'm not unique. It can happen to anybody. Without discrimination, it can be overwhelming and unexpected when it hits, when you're recruited. An unpaid carer is an equal opportunities employer. Even age isn't a barrier. Unpaid carers choose to take on these roles for various reasons. It could be due to love, lack of funds for paying for paid carers, a sense of duty or expectation, and a plethora of reasons in between. The care challenge will affect you. It might affect you already. It might affect somebody you know. It might be short term, it might be long term. It might be part-time, light touch, or it might be full-time and heavy, intense. Even prior to the pandemic, carers trod a very lonely, isolated path, emotionally, practically, and socially. So it often feels like a lockdown. Many have said that since the lockdown that the wider global society has experienced. Everyone that I've met, the majority of carers have said, I've been living that lockdown already. And that makes me sad because they've lost the size of their world. It's shrunk. They've lost their self-worth. They've lost a sense of belonging. No one should lose a sense of belonging in a community. We are a community. Now, carers aren't martyrs. They're not victims. They're not looking for self-pity. We all make choices. We all have consequences to our choices. Most actions and decisions that caremakers do make are cared for, needs led. In other words, they have to consider the person they look after and care for first and foremost, so that they can maintain that all-round welfare and quality of life that they have chosen to provide for their loved ones. And they provide that round the clock, practically, emotionally, and as an advocate. I set up the Carers Health and Wellbeing Forum last year on Facebook because the pandemic showed me even more harshly and starkly how severely unpaid carers were struggling in isolation, unheard, unseen, unsupported in many, many ways, being unable to leave their homes, having no one to talk to. The Carers Health and Wellbeing Forum provides an inclusive communication space and wellbeing opportunities with peer support built into it, providing confidential, accessible and responsive and listening community. It shares advice, it shares information, it shares experience and tips, and also importantly shares information many carers can miss out on, such as the legislation and their rights. It's been a lifeline to many, and that's what we need to do on a wider level with our community. Caring can be extremely rewarding. You know, on the days where you get the win from different challenges that you have to face every day, it can feel amazing. You could literally have made the difference between life and death, between pain and comfort, between loneliness and companionship for somebody. All that goes towards well-being, and that's what it should be about at the end of the day. We should all look out for each other. Now, the impact of a carer's life and lifestyle, it creeps in like a fog rolling into the night, insidiously enveloping everywhere and everything, stealthily and without mercy. And the effects on health and well-being and self-esteem and identity, and a carer's sense of place and standing in society, can leave lots and lots of long-lasting damage. The effects of restricted freedoms and opportunities and connections adds extra unnecessary stress. It's avoidable. It doesn't have to be that way. With preparation and joy done working in communities, in our homes, in our communities, in our offices, in our buildings, we can focus and have planning so we can prepare for all this. Carers can be enabled and supported to have a better work-life balance, to have a positive health and wellbeing lifestyle. They can lead fulfilled personal and social lives while still carrying on with their caring responsibilities if we work together. It could happen to you, it could happen to me again, it could happen to anybody that we know, the person sitting next to you, a stranger on public transport. Carers can and do contribute widely and are a huge asset to society. They develop a vast array of transferable skills and qualities that need to be valued. They need to be more involved where they can and want to be. We need to have that equality of access. All sorts of skills are useful, from practical skills through to listening skills, through to resilience, patience, all the sorts of qualities that we can teach our communities and our future citizens. So how can we prepare for your plan C for the CARES challenge, so that you, when you're in this position, have a happier, healthier, more inclusive and collaborative experience? Did you know that we save the government, the UK government in this instance, nearly £60 billion a year on their social fund spending? In the year of the pandemic, just 3/4 of a year into it, it over doubled to over £135 billion. That's crazy. That's £530 million a day that unpaid carers saved the government's social care budget. That's mind-blowing, absolutely mind-blowing. Care hours went up over 10 hours on top of what they were already providing, and there was no extra respite in that. In fact, the care actually became 24 hours a day for most carers, and that had an impact on wellbeing. And behind these incredible, horrendous figures and the impact on the economy, our unpaid carers are real, amazing people who have their own needs, their own dreams, their own struggles, yet are still everyday heroes like the paid key workers. They're just regular people like you and me. They're a workforce of key workers who are selfless, caring, exhausted, undervalued, overworked, overlooked, and unpaid. So we need the future to look better. We need inclusive opportunities and inclusive practices to enable communication and connection to reduce the suffering and isolation that unpaid carers feel. We need to develop better quality and access to support and services, and develop better training and development opportunities for you, for your family, for me, for our neighbours, our colleagues, our employers, our employees. We all need to make this better so that we can all be more flexible when we go onto that journey, when our time comes. We need to care for each other proactively and intentionally by planning ahead, by preparing our plan C, and provide better social and wellbeing opportunities, such as showing up and helping friends, family and neighbours, enabling breaks and respite, and having better work, care and leisure policies and practices where carers can go and enjoy time out. Equality of access and opportunity, inclusion and reduced damage to wellbeing and health can be real. We can make this happen. It's not that difficult. Unpaid carers are a vulnerable group. They need their rights protected and applying. So we can shape our future. You can take control today. You can do something. You can shape it, I can shape it. Together we can shape it so that carers are valued, listened to, respected, acknowledged, visible, and nurtured in their own rights. So, in conclusion, this evening, they say it takes a village to raise a child. I'm saying it takes a whole community to look after its carers. So whether you're one of the 11.5 million unpaid carers in the UK currently, or you know someone who's a carer or uses a carer, or if you're an employer of carers or a patron of carers, wherever you are on your journey, in the care journey, on the care challenge, reach out to me. Reach out and let's work out what Plan C looks like for you and your loved ones. Let's get this sorted. Let's be prepared. It's been a privilege to share my story with you. Thank you for listening. I'm Raj Jill Harrison, and I am the Carers Coach. Thank you.
Thank you, Raj. Thank you very much. Wow, really powerful, really powerful. Wow, well done, well done. That was excellent, really excellent. And we've had such an interesting range of conversations. That's how I see public speaking as basically powerful conversations that are being led by one person to many. But for me, it always feels like a powerful conversation, and that was a very powerful conversation, Raj, on a very different subject. So we've heard an interesting range of topics. We've seen amazing different personalities and styles, but the common theme for me has been, the impact that you've all made through your speeches, your courage, your vulnerability this evening. So that's how it looks to me anyway, and it's been a real pleasure to hear all of your speeches this evening. Now, are there any outstanding questions in the Q&A? That's something which I would like to check. There's one question which came in earlier, which I think, I can't remember whose speech this is aimed at, but you mentioned to say no. Is it just this? So is that a question about the resilience and the selfishness, which I think Latoya was speaking about? Could be. So maybe there's an answer to give there. I don't know, Latoya, if you'd like to say something about that, you're welcome to.
I had typed an answer, and I don't know if anybody else can see it.
Okay.
What I basically said was, in short, no, lol. But saying no to the things that aren't conducive or healthy is a way of saying yes to yourself. It's a way of saying yes to your hopes, your dreams, your health, your time, and to the things that are important to you. So I know that we live in a culture where, especially, and I will say gender-wise, women are taught that, we're not conditioned to say no. We're conditioned to say yes, to please, to accommodate people. But every time we say yes, it can often be a no to our own personal desires, priorities, health, etc. And I think Raj's speech is a very good example of that. In being carers and in being selfless, what's deemed selfless and altruistic, the downside of it, or the back shot of it, is that we neglect self. And so I think we as people have to be condition our minds and ourselves to say, if I tell someone no over here, I'm actually saying yes to something over here. So it's appropriate use of my time. If I say no, it keeps my perspective, it keeps my priorities clear. So, it does quite brutishly, quite sheepishly, a bit cheekily, but sometimes, rather than also justifying the no with explanation, because we tend to, if we do give a no, want to justify it to explain ourselves, and that's time consuming and emotionally draining. I think it is a useful tool to be able to say no and own your no and stick to your no, because a no over here is a yes to my mental health. It's a yes to my physical health. It's a yes to my dreams. And I think we need to reframe that sometimes. So the time allotted in the speech didn't really allow for that, but it's a conversation worth having.
Great, thanks. That's brilliant, Latoya. Thank you very much for that. Okay, cool. So let me bring up what is in essence, I think, the final slide of the slide deck. Well, just a reminder, these are the speakers that you've listened to this evening. You'll receive an email after this event that you've graciously come along to this evening with all of this information as to who these speakers are, and if you want to get in touch with them in any way, that's going to be possible. Then the event itself, as I said, this event is hosted by Speak Up Challenge. And I am happy to tell you really that if you want, a lot of these journeys began in this way, by the way. If you're interested in developing yourself as a speaker, if you've got a powerful story to tell, if you're somebody who just really wants to develop the confidence to speak in public in the way that we've seen our speakers doing this evening, well, you know, there are free diploma days which you can attend. So you'll also get an email about this. And that's, as I say, that's how many of these speakers' journeys began this evening. So I'd just like to thank you all. I'd like to thank in particular our speakers for all the work you've put into crafting your speeches and into sharing your stories so powerfully and so generously with us this evening. I'd also like to thank you all for attending, because it's all very well speaking, but if there ain't no one listening, well, it's a bit like, is it really happening? You know, is it really existing? So your listening has been vital in making it possible for our speakers to speak. Okay, so that's it. My name is Neil Cooper, and it's been my pleasure to host the evening. So we're going to wrap it up now. Thank you all for being here. And if you've got any final questions, then send us an email, get in touch, drop us a line, go to visit the Speak Up Challenge website.